Well, that was a bit of an adventure, wasn't it, getting here today?
Yes, it was. In fact, we nearly didn't get here.
No. So the much anticipated podcast nearly didn't happen.
Yes, but we like good troopers, we soldier on.
For the audience, for the listener out there.
Actually,
we did it all for them.
Yes, but if you listen to the background noise here, it sounds like we're by the seaside.
And it looks like it as well. But we'll come on to that in a minute, won't we?
Yeah. Welcome to another Hidden Wiltshire podcast, which is number
45.
45. My name is Glyn Coy, and I am the face behind Hidden Wiltshire. And with me, I have a chorus of people actually this week. So, who do we have?
Paul Timlett, Glyn's bag carrier.
Elaine Perkins, Glyn's second bag carrier.
Say that again.
Elaine Perkins,
You need to be hotter with the mic.
Yes.
The mic, please.
We're sharing a mic here.
the second bag carrier.
And we also have a guest with us this week.
Hello, I'm Emma from Wardour Wiltshire.
There we go. And that kind of sets the scene a little bit for what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. And where are we today?
Well, we were supposed to be doing our
not
best...
where we're supposed to be, but where are we?
Well, we were supposed to be at Old Wardour Castle doing our best Robin Hood impressions.
Yeah.
But actually, we haven't got there because everywhere is flooded around here, and we're stranded in Tisbury by the River Nadder, which seems to be
The Lake Nadder.
a lake. Nadder.
Yeah. The Nadder Ocean, I think.
The Great Lake of Nadder.
But it was a bit of a story. We planned to be at Wardour Castle, as Glyn said, and we set off this morning after a night where it never stopped raining. It must have rained for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And we finally made it to Tisbury, and we all got in my car, and we thought we'll drive up to Wardour Castle. Went round the corner, past the station, up to the railway bridge, and there was a car up to its windows in water. So that was the end of that. Turned around, and we're now... What is this church, Emma?
This is St John's of Tisbury, basically. Yeah, St John's Church.
Yeah, stunning church as well, isn't it? But actually, Glyn Coy's here, but he's not really, is he? Because we've got Barry White instead today.
Yes, my voice is a bit challenged this morning due to the seasonal cold that I've had for the last week, so I'm doing my best baritone.
Which might mean you might not be talking quite so much.
Yes, but you know me, I'll chip in.
All right. So, what have we been up to since the last podcast, which was when was that? Was that January?
January.
Yeah.
And I'm so disorganised, I've actually forgotten to bring my notes with me. So. Oh, thank you, Elaine. Saved the day.
So the first one on our list was your talk in Trowbridge.
Yes, I did a talk at the museum. I've done a few of these now. They go quite well. But this one was a joint one I did with a gentleman called David Clancy, who's written a book about walking the White Horse Trail in Wiltshire with his son last year. So he approached me and said, did you fancy doubling up? So we did a kind of dual conversation type thing. It went very well, and we both sold some books. So
Yeehaw! So what was the subject? What were you talking about?
Just Wiltshire in general, and we talked about a little bit about his journey through the various parts of Wiltshire and the various white horses, and we linked that back into the stuff that we've covered on Hidden Wiltshire, and it went quite well actually. It was just a big talk about walking in the Wiltshire landscape. Yeah. So I think it went well because the museum asked me to come back and do another talk.
Oh, blimey.
So.
Or to clear up the stuff you left behind last time. Eh?
Well, I did leave some books in the bookshop as well, so in the shop of the museum.
Would
so
you mind removing your books from our bookshop,
yes,
please?
If you want to buy a book, go to Trowbridge Museum because they've got some in stock.
So, I mean, on the subject of sort of other collaborators and Wiltshire walks, we just want to sort of shout out really to a friend of ours, Paul Whitewick, who's got a really successful YouTube channel, which is called, strangely enough, Paul Whitewick. But he's just clocked up 100,000 subscribers, which is just incredible. I mean, anybody, Well, you've got a little YouTube channel, haven't you?
Yeah,
Well,
I've got 326.
Oh, well, look at that. Yes.
I've got some way to go.
But Paul he even got a plaque off YouTube, a silver plaque. So they're already sort of hurtling towards the gold. Well, I presume gold is next. But so check him out. I mean, it's brilliant because a lot of what he does is around ancient roads and railways. I think he started sort of railways, but he's kind of moved on from there. And he used to record with his wife Rebecca, but I think she's started her own YouTube channel now. So it tends to be Paul and Hedley Thorne, another friend of ours we've mentioned a few times. He does a lot of the filming for Paul, and then they've got their own YouTube channel, which the two of them, which we talked about as well, Wessex Ways. Anyway, that's enough of a plug for them because we're here to talk about us. What else have we done? Oh, I went to a public drowning. Which
That sounds really
the
serious.
most fun since the last witch burning I went to.
And I take it you got out of there alive.
Right, yes, it was touch and go. There was slightly less water than we can see today, but it was at the West Harnham Water Meadows in Salisbury, and they a couple of times a year they do a demonstration of the flooding of the Meadows, thank you. We've talked about this for many times on the podcast and in blogs and stuff as we walk around Wiltshire, and you can see the earthworks and things and the channels that you see in channels in fields by rivers. And I've explained ad nauseam about the River Till and how it would be flooded, but I've never actually seen it. So to see a demonstration of it was terrific, really interesting. There's a lot of people turned up as well, and I did a post on Facebook about it with pictures of the crowds, and the two guys running it, one of them was called Hadrian with an H, which is the second Hadrian I've come across in the last couple of weeks, and the other one, what's the other one called? Well, the guy in the bowler hat Phil, that's right, Phil the Drowner, who's got he's got an incredible face. He's such a character, but as somebody said to me, does he do babysitting? Look at him. Yeah, well, he looks like the last person on earth you want looking after your kids. But he was a lovely bloke, really funny. They both were, but that was excellent fun. What else? Blogs. You did Ribery Camp, didn't you, Glyn?
Yes, I did.
What was that all
Ribery
about?
Camp.
Why did you do that?
Because I like it. And there was just an interesting story about that because I think it was last summer or the summer before. It was very dry at one point, and Tim Dorr, who's been on the Hidden Wiltshire podcast before, because he's built a long barrow and we've recorded something inside his long barrow. But he has a farm there at Ribery Camp, and he said that he'd noticed some interesting crop marks on the field. So I went up there one night with my drone and took some pictures of it, and he was right. You could see definite signs of an Iron Age settlement, Iron Age pits and things like that, and there was a shape that we thought might be a henge, but I'm not convinced. But anyway, it's just one of my favourite places, so I thought I'd do a little piece about that.
Was there some idea that there was another white horse there, or donkey?
A
white donkey.
Yeah, there is a theory about that. Yeah. And again, that's something that sometimes comes back to life when it's really dry. Yeah. But I don't think Tim's very convinced about that.
No.
Did they tie up with LiDAR any of the images that you took?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I might check that. Yeah.
That's worth looking at, isn't it? What else? So, Temple Bottom, was that
Yes.
before or after the last podcast?
Before, but right. So we're putting it in now. So
we didn't talk about it though, did we?
No, we didn't. So I've been quite interested in Knights Templars for a little while. I've got this romantic view of them, that they're these wonderful pious men on their horses doing good, but that may not have been the case. However, there wasn't much sign of any Templars in Wiltshire, so I went looking for where they might have been, and the only place that we could see when we looked was Temple Bottom, which might only have been a farm, but it could have been a preceptory. So we went up. It's in the Marble Downs, so it's a beautiful walk. Parking in Hackpen Hill and then walking back towards Rockley, which is where it is, and then down into the bottom. We couldn't find any evidence of the Templars, but a collaborator of ours, John Barrett, he did find a sarsen stone that had been carved out to look rather like a font, and he thinks that's known as the Templar's Bath. So he thinks that might actually be part of the old preceptory, and that there was more there than we can actually see now.
Who exactly were the Knights Templar, apart from being knights, obviously? But
So they were originally set up to look after pilgrims. So after the First Crusade, pilgrims from Europe wanted to go towards the Middle East to actually find these places that were mentioned in the Bible and pay their respects, etc. But unfortunately, they would get robbed or even killed on the way. So one guy, I think his name was Hugh de Payne, he actually set up a group with his friends of knights who would protect the pilgrims on their way through. So that was their original premise. They had a place on Temple Mount, and they then looked after the pilgrims. But that grew and grew and grew, and until actually the King of France got a bit concerned about them being bigger and better than him and more important. So unfortunately, they had a demise based on some rumours that either he spread about them or they were true. So the last Templar who was around in our country, in England, was actually captured in Salisbury, and there are some aspects about him that makes you think that maybe not all of what Philip had dragged up wasn't true. There is a secret there, and some of it's hinted at in my blog.
so the Knights Hospitaller, or however you pronounce it, they were associated with the.
Well, they were a separate order, and they were before the Knights Templar, but they
Who
were
before them?
They were actually what they say. They were looking after people if they were ill or whatever when they were on pilgrimage. So that's what they did. They weren't particularly knights that fought battles, but they then turned into knights that fought
I was
battles.
watching. Is anybody old enough to remember, apart from me, Jack Hargreaves?
Yes, Jack Hargreaves.
And what was it? Country. Was it Country Ways? Yeah. And somebody's got hold of all these old films that Jack Hargreaves made for TV and put them on YouTube, and they're brilliant. And I mean, what was it? I thought it was the 70s, but
60s, probably.
no, but these are colour. These are all in colour. These films.
Maybe a bit later.
So I was thinking 1980s, maybe early 1980s. But I was watching one the other day, and it was about it was about sort of droveways and things. And he went up onto one of the droveways, sort of ox drove, I think it was, in basically a pony and trap, a tilt cart. So his horse was dragging this or pulling this tilt cart all along the ox drove. And it was that long ago that there was some proper genuine, gypsy family up there with their wagon, and they were sleeping up there for about 3 days. And he got talking about the Knights Hospitaller, and he said that they would run these inns, so looking after people on the droveways who were moving cattle or sheep, and that they would stay in these inns, which are also called huts. So you think of Meon Hut, and there's another one over towards Winchester whose name escapes me now, but hut is another name for inn. And that when they were originally established these places, the hospitality, if you like, was provided by the Knights Hospitaller.
Yeah.
So
that was their.
Is he
was
right?
Their thing. Yeah, absolutely. They did. They were there to. I think there's something even in Canterbury now, where you can actually go and stay. It's sort of like a hostel.
Yeah.
So that's what the Hospitallers were about. But the Knights Templars were slightly different because they were more warrior type.
Yeah. So the next thing I got on my list was it's me.
Come on with it. Come on with it.
I should take these glasses off. I can't see a bloody thing. So I did a blog from here, actually, a walk from here. God, I've got a dog barking at us. My walking buddy Stu and I did a walk from Tisbury. In fact, we've done 2 now, and this was the second one. And we went up to, and I'm going to point for the listeners here. Over there, look.
That way.
Oh,
That way.
What's over there, Paul?
It's up there is, it was the three castles. I call it the three castles. Obviously the two at Wardour, the obvious ones, but there's another hillfort, Castle Ditches, I think it is. You said your memory's bad, but mine's even worse. So the Castle Ditches hillfort, which I'd not really heard of until I was trying to piece together a walk around here. And so we went up there, and it's huge.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how big it was. But of course it's all private. You're not allowed in there. Not legally anyway.
Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
You'll get caught.
May or may not have had a look. But it's a hell of a size. I mean, you can actually get very, legally on public rights of way. You can get very close, and you get up to a gate at the top, and you just look over the gate, and basically you're on the top. But I don't know. It's every time I come to Tisbury and do a walk, it's like a quagmire. I mean, is it always like that here?
No, not in the summer. But then you've got all the nettles and the brambles and everything else you can't get through, and the horseflies. But yeah, up Castle Ditches is very wet. There's a lot of springs and streams and sort of tributaries here springing up. So yeah, unfortunately, don't come for a walk here without wellies.
No. Or very good walking boots.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is a good time to walk here based on what you've just said.
September.
2 weeks in September.
Yeah. You're just trying to keep people away, aren't you?
Oh, well, the secret's out. I keep talking about how lovely it is.
Yeah.
And I think this area was a lot quieter. And when lockdown happened, certainly around the Font Hill area, it was discovered. And then it all goes onto socials. And I moan about this. Oh, there's so many cars down there. But actually, I'm part of the problem. Because obviously, I've got a blog that talks about the whole of Wiltshire.
Yeah.
Well, us too.
Yeah, no longer hidden Wiltshire.
No. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, how much of what we talk about is hidden? Certainly not after we've talked about it. Somebody pulled us up for that, didn't they, on the Facebook group, I think.
Yeah, someone
said, "What if you keep telling people about these places? They remain hidden."
Yes, he'd like to keep his hidden Wiltshire hidden.
Well, he said he'd like to keep it for himself. It's
Well, he did. That's
a
true.
bit
Yeah.
selfish of him, but there you go.
Yeah.
But I think that's about it in terms of what we've been up to.
So, should we listen to some music?
Yes.
So, this week we're going a little bit weird, Wiltshire.
See what he did there?
Yes. For a change, because we're normally quite straight-laced on this podcast, but I thought it would be... Although having said that, we did have Steve Dewey on once, but not to talk about UFOs, to talk about roads.
Yeah.
But I'm very delighted to say that we've managed to get Emma Hurd onto this podcast this week, who runs the Weird Wiltshire blog. Do you want to just say a few words about it and what it is and how it started?
Yeah, it's one of those creative lockdown projects, because I know that's 4 years now, I can't believe, that we all headed in there and we're like, oh, we're going to have all this spare time. I was like, what shall I do? Because I'm a writer by profession. But I don't write for myself, I write for businesses and mainly about boring stuff. And I had a think, and I was like, I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And what were my interests? And one that I've always had since childhood, but I've never really, bar reading about, is sort of the weird, the strange and unusual, the weird side of life, so the paranormal. But while we're in Wiltshire, that under that umbrella, or it's such a strange county also comes with sort of crop circles. I know most of them are man-made, but there are other bits.
Most of them handmade?
Yeah,
What are you telling us here?
Yeah.
What are you trying to tell us?
Depends who you talk to on that front, because there's a friend of mine who's been looking for them for many years, and there is a group of people who believe there's more to it than what was his name, Dave, and his sidekick who used to go around with the plank of wood and the ropes.
Yeah, I do remember talking to David Carson about that, because David, he's got the farm over by Alton Barnes White Horse,
Yes,
and
that's
obviously
right.
they had the famous Led Zeppelin cover crop circle on their farm, but he's actually said that whilst some of them are man-made, he's seen something in the circle itself and the way that the stalks are arranged that makes him think there's something weird going on.
Yeah, and that's what Lauren said, and he has, so he's the Ancients of Avalon. He's sat up looking for these crop circles to develop, and he thinks there's got to be the right sort of atmosphere. They wonder if it's something to do with the chalk downland, the aquifers that run underneath, perhaps the mineral content could be to do with it. But the atmosphere is set, and he said he reckons he's seen two actually, I would say arise, but they don't, they fall, don't they?
Yeah.
He's seen them happen, and there's also some photos out there that you can't see at the time. People have taken, there's these like weird black squid type creatures that are in the air around the crop circles, and they're very weird. I've looked at them and thought, whatever can that be? It's not a bird or a plane or anything like that. So yeah, anyway.
What, are these photographs or film?
They're photos.
Yeah.
So I'll have to send them to you. Perhaps you can put them somewhere for people to see. But they're very, very strange. But all of this together, I think, just open minds on some of the crop circles.
I have to say I'm a bit of a sceptic, only because most people in Wiltshire, I think, seem to have heard of Nick Ball, who does Stonehenge dronescapes. I mean, he's got massive following on social media, and he sells a huge number of prints, and he gets tipped off when somebody's making a crop circle because he's always the first there. But as a photographer, like him, I mean, so I'm going to ask a question. The photographs that you've seen, are they digital or film? I've got a reason for asking that. I'll tell you why in a minute.
I don't know, actually.
The old photographs.
Older. So I would have think
pre-digital.
Phones.
Because I still shoot film as well as digital, and I've just got a load of. So I no longer have a darkroom, and I send the film off to be processed, and when it comes back, there is always, because you have to be scrupulously clean in a darkroom when you're developing the negatives, and you get little bits like hair and things.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of mine the other day, and I thought, what on earth is that? And it was just hair that it picked up that stuck to the emulsion and the negative. I'm not saying that's what that is,
no,
but
it
if
be.
it's the moment you said squid thing, I thought
ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the dyes and what have you, the chemicals.
Yeah.
But it's just a hair that's got stuck to the negative basically, and they haven't cleaned it off properly.
Right.
But that may or may not be what it is. Who knows?
Well, it could be. I always think with these things, have an open mind, because we don't truly know.
No.
But most people, when I mention crop circles, they do the massive eye roll, and
Well, I did.
Keep quiet. No, and just, who knows? That's a similar thing. Ley lines here in Wiltshire.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people really truly believe in them. A lot of people think they're nonsense. Where do we sit with them? I don't know. But again, open minds is best, because we don't truly know.
No, absolutely. So bear in mind we were supposed to be at Wardour Castle today for a reason.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about Wardour?
Yeah, so it's one of my favourite local places to take my dog. So I go up there quite a lot, and it's a beautiful, romantic old ruins, and it's originally, and check my dates here because I've got terrible memory, listeners. It's a 14th century. In the 14th century, the Lovell family, who originally had it, sold it to the Arundels, and that was the beginning. I think the Arundels had a happy time there for a couple of centuries, and then the Civil War hit. And basically what happened is Lady Arundel, her husband went off to do the king's business. I'm not really sure what it was. And the
I thought he was fighting for the.
Yeah, fighting
Was he
for the
fighting for the king at that
royalists,
point?
yeah.
But the Civil War started.
Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
went to Oxford, didn't he? I assumed, reading between the
Yeah.
lines, that he went up there to fight for the king.
Yeah,
For the
so
royalists.
he was off doing
King's
Civil
business,
War
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the castle, they were royalists. The castle was besieged by parliamentarian forces. So
Yeah.
it was Sir Edward Hungerford, and this was 1643 in the May. And it was said there were 1,300 men laid siege to the castle, but other things I've read, a few less. And Lady Blanche was this very brave woman who held off the troops for.
She was pretty much there with her servants.
Yeah,
wasn't
she was there with.
It was like
I think she had
nobody there.
25 fighting men with her, but her
Right.
maidservants, her servants, just a few sort of
Yeah.
loyal people, and they managed to hold it off for sort of 5 or 6 days, I think it was.
So I think the English Heritage description of it says that like the maids were like reloading the guns and for
That's
the guys,
right, yeah.
the military guys that were helping defend the place.
Yeah,
So
'cause
they all mucked in.
They were all pretty tired, I'd imagine, by
Yeah.
the end of it. And I think they were bombarding it with, I'm not sure on weaponry of the day, but I know that they were doing something called mining.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether that's where they dig it in and put the gunpowder under the castle, or whether they just roll the barrels. Anyway, they tried to blow up the castle. It was damaged, and in the end she gave up and agreed an honourable sort of surrender. Sir Edward decided against that. He arrested her, put her in Shaftesbury with some of her maidservants. I think the fighting men were killed, even though one of the terms of the surrender was not. That they all survived, and she was captured and basically, I think, kept for about a month before she was released, and then she was in Salisbury for a while. Parliament basically, the castle was left, but in the December of 1643, her son Henry returned and decided he wanted to capture it back. So it went under siege again, this time for 3 months, but it was the parliamentarians who were in the castle. Eventually Henry solved the issue by blowing up one side of the castle.
Yeah, he blew up his own house basically, didn't he?
Destroyed it.
Yeah, so they had to leave, but then obviously he hasn't got his own ancestral home.
No.
So I think Parliament confiscated the castle, even though it was back in his hands, and so it stayed until the restoration of Charles II, when the Arundel family actually got it back. So that was 1660, and by then it was totally ruined. There were probably trees and plants growing out of it, but the family kept it on as an ornamental ruin. And Lady Blanche actually died 1649, and she is buried in this here church.
Oh
in the
wow, I
crypt.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I've never seen her, but then I'm not sure what the vicar would think if I said, hey, I want to go and look at the dead bodies. So yeah, she's literally probably a few metres from where we're standing
Yeah.
right now. They
So
did,
I
sorry.
was going to say, I guess all that turbulent history does make it rife for having quite a lot of ghosts and spooky.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the theories behind ghosts is that certainly there's two different types, I suppose, broadly speaking. You've got your residual ghosts, so they are said to be like almost imprints of time. So when there was a major, either an emotional or violent event or something like that, somehow the land or the stone or something keeps that energy and possibly replays it. Now I know if you don't believe in ghosts, this is a controversial sort of opinion, but it would explain Lady Blanche, who is seen in the castle itself, but also wandering down. There's a beautiful lily pad pond down there. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
And she wanders down and walks down around the lake, and it's normally at twilight. The temperature drops, which it would when the sun's going down, and then her sort of ethereal apparition is seen walking down there.
And she's the grey lady, is she, that people
She's
talk
the
about?
theoretical grey lady. She's been seen by lots of people up there over time, although I can find no actual eyewitness accounts, unfortunately. But I've got the old headmistress of the Swallow Cliff School, and one of the gamekeeper's wives. This would have been about the 70s when this story was told. They've seen her up there. So yeah, that's her. She's the most famous ghost up there. But there's some more. So do you want the rest of them?
Yeah. Give us some more ghosts. We've got a whole list, but we're never going to get through it. We'll be here for hours. But I mean,
So-
pick some out.
Yeah, the white owls, there's an old legend that when one of the Arundel family were about to die, you would see white owls flying over the castle, but obviously they haven't been seen for many centuries because the Arundel family have actually now died out. So
Have they?
that's that line of it.
Yeah.
When you are in the castle grounds, there is a grotto. So
Yes, yeah, I've
you're
seen
probably
that.
aware of.
Yeah.
What is really interesting is I had a conversation about a year or two ago with the manager of the castle, the sort of English heritage manager, and they're trying to find out. They think the grotto was built, made with stones from what was a Tisbury henge, but they can't find out where this henge is. They've not come across it yet.
Interesting. Yeah.
So some of the stones are blue stones, so the same as Stonehenge. It's a really interesting little sort of grotto, and I will admit I've had my own an experience up there, shall I say. So I'm quite a strong, fit, healthy person. I'm not one given to fainting or anything like that. But the first time I ever went up there, I went over to the grotto, and I literally felt like someone had taken all of my energy out, and I became a bit sort of seeing stars, really faint, felt a bit weird, and eventually I sort of said to my partner, I sat down, had a rest, went away, felt absolutely fine. I was like, I'm just going to walk back up there. Went back up there again, same thing happened again.
Wow.
And it was right near this grotto. So I don't know whether that's spooky or not, and there's always this element of is it in your own head, but it was a weird experience I had up there. One of the weird facts with the grotto is they broke open not broke open, but somehow in there it was taken apart and they found a skeleton within two of the stones. So who that was, what he was doing up there, he's now buried somewhere in the grounds. So that's within the castle. If you head out, there's quite a lovely walks up behind the castle. If you head up the hill, you will find a sort of tunnel. It might have been the entrance to the castle at some point, but there's a local paranormal group, Twilight Shadows, and they have done a couple of overnight investigations up there, and they've had a lot of phenomena happening within this tunnel. So voices that you can't pick up the conversation of, but in the background, stones being thrown, which they said could have fallen off the tunnel. But like they saw the second time they're up there, a white mist rolling in through the tunnel, then back out, a black sort of figure, and I think the smell of horses and horse urine at one point, and the sound of sort of
I've had a bit of
hooves.
a funny experience
Ah.
there. Yes, because we walked through it, and yes, a stone did fall down, which I thought, that's just a bit of old bridge falling down. And then I heard something else, and I turned round as if I thought somebody was following us, but they weren't. So who knows? It could be, couldn't it?
Stu and I had our lunch sitting on top of that tunnel when we did the walk.
Did you?
Yeah, it was lovely.
Well,
Look,
maybe you're not sensitive.
no, I'm not
No,
sensitive at
discombobulated
all.
voices.
No, just all we can hear.
I absolutely love hearing these stories
No, I
about
do as
people's
well, yeah.
experiences, because I've never experienced anything like that.
Well,
It's so boring.
I have, but I'm not going to go into it today.
Maybe at the end, when we wrap up, we should all recount whether we've any of us have had
that's
a
good idea.
paranormal
That's a good
experience.
But we'll have to keep it brief.
Yes.
Should we leave Wardour Castle behind? I mean,
Sure.
where else should we talk about? Do you want Fishton Anger?
Yeah, so Fishton Anger. Well, I'll leave the bit about the ghostly encounters I may or may not have had in my own home in the area. But I used to live in the Fishton Anger area, which is.
Was your house haunted?
I can't say yes because I'm a skeptic.
Right.
But there were certain things that went on that possibly meant it. People would say it was. I would think possibly with the things that we encountered. We didn't see anything. Well, I didn't see anything. It's possible my son did. But so that was Fishton Anger. But Fishton Anger The ghost story that I'm aware of is one possibly related to Fishton Manor, the old,
Okay.
well, it used to be known as the asylum when in the olden days for the mentally ill. And there's always the rumour about Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's eldest son, that died in 1918 associated with the Spanish flu. But other people saying he didn't die, he actually went mad, and he was actually incarcerated or banged up or put into this asylum in Salisbury. And you can see there's a tower, there's a few towers actually associated with Fishton Manor, but I think it's Avon Lodge. There's a tower where you can actually, it has been said, see an apparition at the window which is likely to be Prince Albert.
Oh.
So that's the story.
Yeah.
All those people now who have bought nice new dwellings in Avon Lodge, I'm sure it's only a story.
Yeah. It's not really. It's haunted.
I've always thought though that area, before it got developed into the posh new retirement
Yeah.
flats, the other side of the road there were what were old houses for people that were part of the old manor. It is a bit of a creepy, it was a
Yes,
creepy
it
old
is creepy,
place.
yeah.
It looks completely different now, doesn't
And it's
it?
creepy down by the roundabout where Devizes Road and Wilton Road
Yes.
meet. And so I've always found it a bit spooky when I was walking back home at night, but I mean, you do find it spooky, these places. But it was where people were, executed.
Yeah.
And when I put up my blog, somebody on the Facebook group again said, does that explain the strange experience we had there? So somebody
Oh.
somewhere has had a bit of a strange sighting around that area.
What other stories have you got?
What personal ones?
No, just. Well, I mean,
or-
obviously your website has got lots of stories on.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say, I'm always having some weird experiences, and they are all on the website. But the more you get out and the more you start talking about it, what's really interesting is hearing other people chip in with stuff. One of my favourite ghost stories at the moment, which deserves a bit more investigation, is another local one. So it's called Black Molly. So she's at Pitt House, which is a Neo-Grecian sort of manor house, just a couple of miles from here. Really beautiful place. And in their cellar, in their cold, dank, creepy cellar, is an upright coffin with a skeleton in it. And there's a little window in it, and you can see 3 rib bones. And that is said to be the ghost of, well, they call her Black Molly. She was living in the house, one of the servants, probably 1820s-ish, and it was said that she had a baby, and through her, it was in the pink room of the house, and she killed the baby through scalding. So quite what happened, I don't want to know, because it's
Horrendous.
yeah, not nice. And she was arrested, taken to Oxford, and apparently hung there for her crimes. The body came back to the house. It was said that one of the relations was probably the baby's father, as was not unusual in those times, I think, for the poor maids to be abused. She was interred in the house, and she's said to be seen in the pink room, but also in the corridors nearby. But the other part of this story is there is a curse on the house. So people have wanted to remove the skeleton, and each time they remove it, something disastrous happens. So the first time she was taken out, part of the house caught fire, one of the wings. The second time, I think it was, I've got to get this the right way round, the daughter may have died. And then the second time round, it was the son and heir. Sorry, the second time was the son and heir who died, and the third time was the only daughter. So she hasn't left that house ever since. But I did get an email weirdly this week about this subject, and someone saying he's been doing some research up in Devizes, and they think that it might have been a ruse, a sort of ghoulish story, and the skeleton was bought from some curio shop by one of the particularly eccentric, mad owners up there. But then again, on the other side of the coin, they are saying, well, he was just the sort of guy that would do something like get a maid pregnant, and he could have been covering up the story. So who knows? That's one I need to do more delving into.
Actually, just on sort of curses and things, it just reminded me of Grovely Wood, which we had on our list here.
Yeah.
Which is all sorts of stories about Grovely Wood, and of course the main one is the witches' trees, the 4 witches' trees, or there were 4, there's now 3. And the story there is, I think it's 1737, there was an outbreak of smallpox in Wilton, which was horrendous, and it killed a lot of people. And at about that time, the 4 Hansel sisters who came from Denmark had moved into the village, and they were blamed for the smallpox outbreak, and they were basically taken up to Grovely Wood and bludgeoned to death. And they buried the 4 sisters at a distance apart so that they couldn't sort of commune in the afterlife. And allegedly these 4 beech trees grew up on the graves. And if you go up there now, there is one in particular which is adorned with votives and things, and then the other 2, I think occasionally you'll find stuff. But the 4th one blew down in a storm. And anybody read? I wrote a blog called Grovely Wood and the Woodsman, and we met a real local character called Jerry. What was his surname? I'll come back to me in a minute. Jerry Faithful, and we met him in a sort of woodyard up there, which he keeps, and he said that he was asked by the owner of the estate to go and cut up the tree that had fallen, and he said to us, "You think I'm going to bloody touch that? You must be joking." And he refused, because they wanted it sawn up for firewood, and he absolutely refused to go near it and to touch it. So whether they got somebody else or whether it's still lying up there, I don't know.
I think it's still there actually. It's just a sort of pile of wood that's been left for nature, which is quite nice. But
there's all the other stories of because there's a Roman road goes through it, and you could hear the Roman soldiers and
the woodsman himself.
Yes, that's right. What was it? The woodsman.
If you hear a twig.
Yeah,
break,
if you hear a twig break. Was it the woodsman where he was murdered, or he was found dead up there? And there was 2 stories. One that he was actually the guy that died was an artist who. What's the story? Something happened to him whilst he was up there.
They were hunting, weren't they? And they
accidentally shot by an arrow or something whilst he was out there drawing or painting. And what was the other one? There was
the other one was he was a wood. Basically both involving hunting gone wrong, I think. So there's quite. And funnily enough, I wrote a blog about Grovely, and since then I've had a couple of people get in contact and with their accounts of things that have happened up there. I was up there in lockdown with a friend. We walked from down the road when we were allowed out with one other person. We were up there, and it was late evening, that sort of gloaming time, and you do walk through pockets of the woods, and suddenly there will be no bird song, much like as at Kit's grave, and this creepy feeling of someone suddenly behind you. And I am very aware of people always saying, it's all in your head, you're making it up, you think it, you feel it, but actually you're walking along quite merrily, and then suddenly you get this very weird feeling. A little bit further along, birds return, fine. It happened a couple of times, and I've got a friend we call her the secret psychic because she doesn't like to let anyone really know, but she won't go up there. She said there's some sort of elemental presence or energy up there within the woods.
I read your blog about that, and I'm glad I read it afterwards, because I went up there. When was it? Probably 6 weeks ago, but there was a really harsh frost, a hoar frost. And I've taken some of the best photographs I've ever taken up there, and I was just like a kid in a sweetie shop. I was running around, I got deeper and deeper into the woods. I got lost. I had no idea where I was, and it was getting dark, and I was coming out, and I didn't see anything, didn't feel anything, but I thought, blimey, it's quite creepy up here, and I didn't know where I was. I couldn't see anything. By the time I got back to the car, it was actually pitch black.
It's quite easy to get lost, isn't it? Almost like the forest wants you to be lost.
It's interesting you say that, and I find that really interesting, because the very first time I went up to Grovely Woods, I got lost. And I don't normally get lost when I'm out.
No, I don't
Do
either.
I?
Sounds like the Selwood Triangle.
Yeah,
to
the
me.
Selwood Triangle.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I always get lost there. I'm pointing towards Alfred's Castle, but I never get to the tower. I never get there, even though I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I always feel there might be some elemental forces there,
Yeah.
maybe.
That's another place where, birdsong, absence of birdsong.
Oh, I haven't noticed that.
There's
actually.
I've got my memory. There's a hill, Gare Hill,
Right.
that comes up from sort of Froome direction and climbs up
Yeah.
towards Alfred's Tower. When I was a keen cyclist in a cycle club, that we used to race up Gare Hill, and it's a long climb. It's really hard because it's just so long. And we all used to say if we did like a club run down Gare Hill, people would say there was no birdsong. Everybody would mark on the fact, and we'd all go quiet as we're cycling through. And there's maybe 15 of us, and everybody would just go quiet.
Amazing.
I'll tell you where else we've been where there's no birdsong. Furs Knoll.
Yeah, oh God, yes.
Do you remember we recorded a podcast in there late at night? I think I think you had a classic line as we were sort of deciding to exit the knoll. I think there's a classic line on that podcast where you said, "Let's get the hell out of here." It's a really creepy place.
Yeah,
it really is.
I'd go to. I have been to Grovely Woods in the dark, as I said, but I'm not sure about Furs Knoll.
I need to look into this.
Yeah.
Well, there was an incident a couple of years ago, wasn't there, where there was someone from the Hidden Wiltshire group went up there for a walk and discovered quite a few animal heads.
Well, no. It's so the story is it was Steve Dixon who does the music for us.
Yes.
And he was called by somebody who was up there and said, because Steve is quite into sort of animal welfare and things, and he got a call saying, "Steve, you need to come up here and see this." And there was I think there was a badger's head hanging from a tree, and there were sort of birds sort of had been killed, not just died, they'd been killed and stuck in holes under trees and things. And it was Steve who first said to me, he said, there's no way I'd go up there at night. But, so we went and found out for ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember Headley Thorne, our friend, the drone photographer, went up there one day to take some photographs, and he said he didn't want to go in there because he saw some man behaving strangely, and I think
that's right. Yeah.
I think it was a fellow who was absolutely stark naked.
Yeah. The naked rambler.
Yeah, so it attracts all sorts, that place, but it is very, very creepy at dusk.
That's another weird thing, isn't it? That's one of your stories, the naked highwayman.
Yes, that was
I think
by
I know
Cheryl.
who you mean.
Yeah, by the Cheryl White Horse, where the A4 goes down. At one point that used to be frequented by the naked highwaymen, who the method for robbing coaches was to startle everyone by painting themselves white, be totally stark naked, and just shock people into submission.
That would be startling, wouldn't it?
Yes. I think there's a painting in the pub.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the pub. There's a pub on the road there, and if you go inside, there's a painting of them on the wall. Very interesting.
Actually, I saw it's just unusual, but and it wasn't Wiltshire, but I have a girlfriend, a female friend. Call her a girlfriend. A female friend who wasn't my wife. We quite often walk together because she likes like really challenging walks and risky walks on cliff edges. She used to be a very, very good climber. My wife has got vertigo, so we were doing a walk down in Dorset on the coast there, around by the Compasses pub and down from there, and Chapman's Pool and all around that area. And we were, because Julia always packs a fantastic lunch. We were sitting on the cliff having something to eat and something to drink, and I looked round and saw this guy walking behind us, and I looked and I thought, he's not wearing anything. So I said, Julia, you better keep looking out to sea because you don't want to see what's behind us. And this bloke walks past on the coast path wearing nothing but boots and a pair of gloves.
Really?
And he wasn't cold, so I don't know what the gloves are about.
Well, that is weird in itself, isn't it?
A naked rambler, yes. I think.
Yeah, we've seen it. Well, it wasn't me that saw him, but my friend saw him, stopped the car and went, "You all right?" And he's like, yeah, I'm just doing a charity walk.
Yeah.
no clothes whatsoever. Maybe it was him.
Maybe him.
Yeah.
Got any other stories for us?
Oh, I mean, there's so many in Wiltshire, and I had to sort of rack my brains before coming on here to see which are my favourites to tell you, and any you might know. And I thought we'd stick to sort of South Wiltshire for now, but Elaine, you might know this one, obviously, the haunch of venison.
Oh, I was in there 2 weeks ago. Saturday before last. Yeah.
Did you see the creepy hand?
No, I only found out about it afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
in the fireplace or something, isn't it?
It's a bread oven.
Bread oven, yeah.
Yeah. So the story with that is it's a really old pub built sort of medieval era, and it was a place where the stonemasons building the new not so new cathedral used to go. Like a lot of the pubs in Salisbury, they have underground tunnels and cellars, and the tunnels lead to the cathedral and St Thomas's Church. So I think it was the priests or the whatever they were called, the clergy of those times, still wanted to visit the pub and have a sneaky drink, but they didn't want anyone to see, so they had the tunnels. But anyway, this is a crazy old building, lots of old woodwork. It's probably listed to within an inch of its life. The story goes that there was once the locals were playing a game of cards upstairs, and this gregarious sort of character arrived. So he'd travelled from Southampton, and he bought everyone around a drink. So he wanted to join the card game, and they allowed him to. Went upstairs to play, and he kept winning, and they started to get a bit suspicious. And I think it was the butcher who said, "Hang on a sec, you're cheating." Pulled out his cleaver and swiped his hand clean off, and it fell onto the floor, and out fell the set of cards that he'd hidden up there. So he basically lost his arm on account of this game, and he is the main ghost in this building, the demented whist player. So he's
Demented what?
Demented whist player. So I think the landlady has seen him at the foot of her bed holding what was an arm, but not an arm. He's blamed for various japes around the pub. So the staff coming in, they'd ladled the table the night before. They came in the next day, all the napkins had been changed from white to red. Salt and pepper pops where there shouldn't be. They hear footsteps always upstairs on that sort of second floor, the staff when they're clearing up. There's also another ghost in that building, and that is supposed to be a young lady who, a mother, and you get a rush of air and the smell of sort of flowers, and it's said to be her. She lived locally, sent her son out for a flagon of ale for dinner, and with a few pennies in his pocket, and he was robbed and killed, unfortunately. And she is said to be seen in the pub, but also behind it in St Thomas's churchyard. Sort of, you look out the window, you can see her, and she's out looking for her son that never returns.
Spooky around the ladies' toilets in that pub.
Oh, is
because
it?
that's out the back.
Yeah.
Because it dates back to 1300 and something, that pub.
Could be.
Yeah, it was around then. It was basically around the time the cathedral was.
Yeah. I think it's the oldest in Salisbury, possibly. They don't seem to be totally sure. But.
So they've kept that. Well, I say they've kept the mummified hand. It actually got stolen at one point. So the one that's in there now is a replica.
Right.
I met a guy at a Christmas party who said he knew the bloke that had made this recent one and put the cards in there. But I believe a couple of the original cards are now in the Salisbury Museum. So.
And is that in the what's the little snug at the front? Is it the maiden's snug or something, or horses?
It's the second room along. So
No, the first one is you're coming through the door, and
Yeah.
it's on the right as you're coming through the door. Is that where the hand is?
No,
it's
the
in
hand's
that one up.
upstairs.
Oh, it's upstairs.
So you go up a few steps, and it's off to the left.
Oh, right.
You can sit and have a pint next to the hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's
right.
a big poem sort of about the whole story.
Yeah.
Next time you're in Salisbury, go and have a look. It's a good excuse to go
I
and
was
get
there
a drink.
yesterday. I was in the Wig and Quill yesterday, which is another very old pub.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, it's not weird, but just down the road, the New Inn along the same
Yes.
street, there's the post outside which I've never noticed before. I've lived around here for 30 years, and there's a post outside the New Inn, which apparently is where they used to tie their horses up. There was a whole row of them, and it's the original post going back to however old the New Inn is.
Yeah.
Not that new. But,
I believe that place is haunted.
yeah, I'd heard that.
But I don't know much of the story because I was going to be put in touch to speak to the landlady, and that hasn't quite happened yet.
You should do that.
But the other one, which was the George, is now the Boston Tea Party coffee shop. They let me go upstairs and have a look around, and it's an amazing, the wattle and door upstairs where no humans are supposed to go. Yeah, is all on show. And the staff there say when they're locking up at night, you'll just see at the bottom of the office door a shadow walk past, and you'll hear footsteps. Open the door, nothing there.
Yeah.
And they said they've heard like conversations, like people are in the pub. Open it, obviously no one there. A lot of this sort of echoes of the past in the pubs of Salisbury.
How long have
Very
we been going?
spooky. Well, 55 minutes now, so
Oh, dear,
we're
right.
getting towards the end now. We talked about maybe us all sharing our own paranormal experiences. I want to just plug the thing that I've said this before on this podcast. I once filmed a UFO with my drone.
Oh, yes. No, you didn't.
And actually, I hid the video from YouTube because I was fed up with getting all the crank, comments and things like that. But anyway, I've unhidden it. So if anyone wants to go and look on the Hidden Wiltshire YouTube channel, you should be able to see my pathetic video of a UFO with a Westbury White Horse.
Yeah.
And what was it?
Well, we'll have to go and see and judge for yourself. But it was something white, travelling at very high speed. Tiny it was like a speck. But it was flying faster than you could see with the naked eye. And someone did some analysis of it afterwards and calculated it was travelling at something like 3,000 kilometres an hour.
Wow.
Anyway, it's all very mysterious, and have a look at it and make of it what you will. I'm very sceptical, of course.
Yeah.
But if you're going to see a UFO anywhere, it's going to be in Wiltshire, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, as we've mentioned, we keep saying we should bring him back on, but Steve Dewey, who's written books about UFOs, and he's a skeptic, so a firm skeptic, but he's written books about it, and with his sort of scientific brain has tried to sort of analyse it. And
I wonder whether we should do that. Maybe have him on and have the Warminster thing as an episode.
I've actually got an idea for you, because I've been in touch with him because I wrote for Haunted magazine about the Warminster thing, and he invited me. They still go, the old Skywatchers, bank holiday weekend of in August. They still go up there and have a little wander around, and I really want to go and join them and just pick their brains. So give me a shout, maybe he'd let us all go along.
Yeah, that's an idea, isn't it?
Record a podcast whilst we're there.
Yes, yeah.
From the top of Cradle Hill.
Yeah.
And who knows, we might see something.
Yeah.
You never know.
So, if we're just going to wrap up now, so
well, have you got any other stories? I have one. So
you do?
Yes, I do have one.
I thought you were
personal ones or just...
No, personal one, yeah.
So my old house, it's just an ordinary end of terrace, but none of us smoked, and we all smelt cigarettes. We had little incidents with cats that went berserk every now and again, as if they'd seen something. My son, when he was small, he seemed to see something or somebody, but he'd say, oh, they're gone. So there was sort of like strange little things like that. And although there wasn't, they've changed the TV channels a few times, and it was only when we were moving that things really started to heat up. The lights were flashing and all sorts of things. And although I am a skeptic personally, I did say to them, don't worry, they're nice people who are going to be moving in, you'll be fine, just in case. And yes, they did die down a bit, but I think that might just be my imagination. So yeah, there were certain things, the cat being scared quite often for no real reason, my son being sort of linking with things. He did say he might have heard voices, and then the fact that there was a smell that that might have been associated with somebody who used to smoke. I mean, I'm sure there's all explanations for it, but at the same time, in the end I said, just don't worry, we're moving out, but you'll find that the new people are nice.
We do say that though, that sort of you get a phenomenon, and when building works or movement occurs, it sort of ramps it up somehow, almost like it releases some extra energy for phenomenon.
So I used to live in a thatched cottage dated, it says 1750 on the chimney, and my wife and I were sitting watching the TV one night, and we had sort of big ingle-nook fireplace, and on one side of it was a little window that looked out to the little driveway that was at the side. I mean, it's quite small, only enough room for one car. And we were sitting there, and it wasn't dark, it wasn't quite dark. It was just sort of, twilight, I suppose. And I sort of looked up, and I saw something walk past the window, and basically it was a woman dressed in sort of Victorian peasant's costume, and she was just grey, and she walked past the window, and I said to my wife, I said, "Did you see something then?" And she said, "Yes, I did." I didn't tell her what I'd seen. I said, "What did you see?" And she described it, and she described exactly what I'd seen. So I jumped up, and the wall from the lounge into the garden was a little, I would call it conservatory, is an exaggeration, it was more a lean-to, and there was a security light on the driveway, and that hadn't gone off, and I looked out and saw nothing. But, and then I think sometime later, so our bedroom was in it was actually an extension of the house, so it wasn't from 1750, it was newer, and we both were woken at night to see a woman standing at the end of the bed, which then vanished, and again we both saw exactly the same thing. So I'm a skeptic, and I have no idea what we saw.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Spooky,
Now, why a woman would be standing in the extension? Sorry?
Did you feel threatened?
No, not at all. In fact, in our house now, which is relatively modern, and it's about 30, 40 years old, we've got a photograph of our old cottage, and it's on a corner of a road in Shrewton, of a lane, and there were 3 thatched cottages at the time. One of them burnt down and has been rebuilt without the thatch. But there was a picture of the 3 thatched cottages, and it was taken from what was our garden looking towards the back of our house, and the driveway where we saw this woman, and then the other 2. And there's a lady standing at the back of the house I think she's holding a baby, or maybe there's a little child next to her. And the clothing that she's wearing, so this is obviously a very old photograph, an early photograph. It was very similar to what we saw, and we like to think, well, that's the lady we saw,
Maybe it was.
Could be. Who knows?
Oh, all very spooky stuff, but
we could go on all day.
We could. But wrapping up. So thanks for joining us, Emma. If people want to find out more about Weird Wiltshire, where can they find you?
Best to find me on my website, so it's weird-wiltshire.co.uk, but you can also find me on Twitter, or X as we're supposed to call it, and Blue Sky, and that's at Weird Wilts blog, capital letters for each word.
We do show notes, so I'll stick it all in there in links and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you can email me with the links.
Yeah,
I've got your the website one, but not the
Yeah.
others. So if you can let me have those,
Yeah, thanks for having me on though.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yes.
Just the other normal housekeeping stuff. Still some books. We sold a few, haven't we, this year?
Yeah, we seem to have sold quite a few this year again. There's been a bit of a run on the books, but we still got some books left.
Thanks to Steve Dixon for the music. So the bit in the middle before Emma's piece, it's appropriate enough. I've called it. Well, he called it, but I've picked "Play Dead." Steve's piece of music that he wrote for us some time ago. And the website for show notes and links, online shop. There's still bits and pieces. You can order all sorts of tat in there, can't you?
It's mainly just books and photographs.
Quality merchandise.
No, there's not much merch up there.
But I think that's it. And the next episode, don't really know, because I'm off on my travels again soon. I'm going to be coming and going for quite some time.
We'll squeeze something in at some point, but we'll let you all know.
Alrighty.
Good. Until the next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.
Bye.